The lantern's glow, I hadn't wanted to stop. The storm was getting worse, but the pull of the place was undeniable. A small, abandoned lighthouse nestled against the edge of jagged cliffs. There was no road leading up to it, just a rough trail hidden by overgrown bushes and tall, whispering grass. The locals called it Hollow Light, and they avoided it, saying it had a strange history. But I had been fascinated with it for as long as I could remember. And tonight, for reasons I couldn't explain, I had to see it. I parked my car on the roadside and braved the rain, clutching my coat tight against the wind. It was a long, slippery walk up to the lighthouse, and by the time I reached it, I was soaked and shivering. But the light, there it was, flickering from the top, even though I knew no one had lived here for decades. The door groaned open as I stepped inside, and a wave of cold, stale air swept over me. The interior was exactly as I'd imagined. Rusted metal railings spiraled up to the top, and the walls were damp and peeling, but the silence was heavy, as if the building itself was holding its breath. I climbed slowly, each creak of the steps echoing off the walls. My flashlight wobbled with every step, casting warped shadows that stretched and twisted along the walls. I kept my focus on the light, which pulsed from above like a heartbeat, steady and inviting. Halfway up, I felt it, a strange presence, like someone watching from just out of sight. I stopped listening. The storm raged outside, howling against the tower. But inside, there was only the sound of my own heartbeat, drumming faster with every passing second. Then I heard it, a faint dragging sound, like footsteps trailing just a few paces behind me. I spun around, flashing the light down the stairs, but there was nothing there, only the empty darkness. A chill ran through me, and I tightened my grip on the flashlight, pushing onward. When I reached the top, the light was blazing brighter than ever, illuminating the small room with an eerie glow. The old lantern sat on the ground, its glass smudged with dust, but the flame inside burned steady and bright. I stepped closer, mesmerized. The lantern's light seemed to move, almost as if it were alive, pulsing with a strange energy. I knelt to examine it, but before I could touch it, the door slammed shut behind me. I jumped, my heart racing as I turned to face the door. But when I looked back at the lantern, it had changed. The light was no longer warm and inviting. It was cold and blue, casting a harsh glow over the room. And in the reflection of the glass, I saw her. A woman, her face pale and drawn, with hollow eyes that stared right through me. She wore an old-fashioned dress, soaked through with seawater, clinging to her thin frame. Her hair was matted and tangled, her lips cracked and bloodless. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. She moved closer, not walking but gliding, her feet never touching the ground. Her eyes were locked on mine, empty and accusing. "You left me," she whispered, her voice like the scraping of stones. Her words cut through the silence, filled with an anguish that sent shivers down my spine. "You left me to drown." I shook my head, terrified, unable to look away. "I don't know you. She reached out, her fingers cold and dripping with seawater, pressing against my chest. The cold spread through me, freezing my heart, and I felt as if I were sinking, drowning in an ocean of dark memories I didn't recognize. The room grew darker, and her face twisted with rage and sorrow, her eyes filling with a stormy darkness. I struggled, gasping for air, but the cold was relentless, dragging me down into the depths of her despair. Just as I thought I would slip into that dark void forever, the lantern's light flickered, and she vanished. I collapsed to the floor, gasping, the warmth returning to my body. I looked around, heart pounding, but the room was empty. The door was open, the storm outside subsiding. I stumbled down the stairs, not daring to look back. When I finally reached my car, I glanced back at the lighthouse. The light at the top was gone, and the structure stood dark and silent against the cliff. To this day, I don't know what I saw, but I can still feel her cold touch. And every now and then, when I'm alone and the night is quiet, I hear a whisper on the wind, filled with pain and regret. "You left me